ever gives up. He's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. G.I. Joe!
Hello everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. So, how was your Thanksgiving break? I know mine was pretty good, actually. So many leftovers to chow down on. I was away for a while. I had family staying here. Couldn't really get to this, but here we are. I want to at least get something in before we start the Christmas countdown month with the Advent calendar. And I don't know what else we're going to be doing for Christmas because I didn't get too many Christmas-themed things this year that we can take a look at. So we might be playing the month of December by ear. But before that happens, I definitely wanted to take a look at these two guys right here. This one you saw on that short that I put up a few days ago, I think it was last week. And in that time, Mindbender showed up. So when I had these two, I was like, I have to put these two together. I have to do these two together. But being as how they're both deluxe figures and they're both going to take up a hefty chunk of time, I didn't want to do it as one long video, so we have a two-parter. That's right, the first ever two-parter. We'll see how it goes. Probably won't even notice, because you're just going to watch one video and then watch the other video. But we have two deluxe figures right here from Hasbro Pulse. Hasbro Pulse exclusives, I believe. This was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, and this was a, I think it was PulseCon exclusive. And interestingly enough, the PulseCon exclusive came first. Mindbender came the day after Thanksgiving, actually. But we have two great-looking packages right here. I love the die-cut diagonal right here, and you can sort of see like the Cobra vault behind it. I love the artwork. Mindbender's looking a little bit more buff than I was expecting. You can see the veins on his biceps. I think he's even flexing on purpose, like taking you to the gun show. But Serpentor over here, Serpentor just looks like, oh, he's ready to wage war. It's fantastic. You can see the Vipers raising their fists in the background. I have a mixed history with Serpentor. Some ways I really, really dig the character, and other ways I'm like, but as a figure, I think he's fantastic. As a character, he's all right. But we'll get more to Serpentor in part 2, because part 1 is going to be focusing on Mindbender. Because if it wasn't for Mindbender, there wouldn't be a Serpentor. And like I said, we have two very nice deluxe packages right here. We turn them on the side. We can see that Mindbender is 43, Serpentor is 51. I have no idea how they do any numbering on these things. We have the ID card that you can look these up if you want to. I never really pay attention to this. I'm not a big fan of this as like the card. On this side with Serpentor, we have his ID as well. Mindbender, we just have the end of the box. But then on the back, we have a full shot of that fantastic artwork that we had on the front of the box. And over here, we got Mindbender with a mummy. We have him in the brainwave scanner, which truthfully, I can't remember if the brainwave scanner came into play in the cartoon. That's definitely something that is important to the comic. I can't remember if they used that in the cartoon or not. Then we have him down here with all the corpses of all the remains of the leaders of history that made this guy right here. And putting him on Lincoln, on the Lincoln Memorial with all of the Vipers hailing him, that's that's an image right there. We have him cauterizing his own wound. He's on his air chariot, leading Cobra into battle. Here he is, just pretty much usurping Cobra Commander. This is going to be great. These are two deluxe figures, big boxes. These are going to be great. But for part 1 of Arise, Serpentor, Arise, yes, totally stole that from the comic, we are going to be focusing on Mindbender right here. The first one we're going to take a look at. Now, like I said, this is some great deluxe packaging going on right here. I like how it has this slip cover that comes off. And just like we saw with the Serpentor figure whenever I was showing it in the short, I like how they put two Cobra symbols together and it made like a double helix, a DNA helix. I think that was really clever. I think that was a really good move. Now when we open this up, we can see we got Mindbender right in there. We got Mindbender in there. We have his accessories on the sides right here. And I think this is a whole lot of box for not as much as it looks like there should be. Like, I think it's cool that we have this deluxe box that opens up and we sort of have like this mini diorama with this DNA tube right here. Like, this is what Serpentor came out of. And it'll be interesting to see if we can actually use that as a diorama whenever things come out. But then we also have like this clawed hand, a brain, a broken skull, these vials. We have some tubes over here, his pistol. We have some sort of chemical gun apparatus thing going on this side. But I feel like there's a lot of dead space in these boxes. And I don't know. I get that it's a big box and it's great presentation and it looks fantastic. But I feel like there's just a lot of dead space. And they didn't need to use this much. Like, I was looking at the deluxe box that Snake Eyes, the Hasbro Pulse exclusive Snake Eyes came in, and the Snake Supreme Cobra Commander, and I think those were better uses of space in the box. This is cool, but I don't know, just kind of underwhelming. I don't know. But enough about the packaging. Let's get Mindbender out of the box and take a look at Hasbro San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Dr. Mindbender. Okay, so to get the slip tray out of here, it doesn't go any way like I thought it would. I thought you would either open up the top or open up the bottom and the tray would just come out. What you have to actually do is cut the tape on the sides, and then this side flap comes down. And then the tray comes out there from the side. Now, you got to be careful because it loses some stability, but then these, the side flaps here, I haven't cut them yet, but they do have flaps on the bottom and on the top, so we'll be able to just slide those right out. But we can salvage the packaging if we would want to use it or keep it for anything. Normally, I don't keep packaging, but I think for this and Serpentor, I'll definitely be holding on to these boxes. All right, here he is, the mad scientist himself, out of the box. We have Dr. Mindbender, and putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he is 6 3/8 to the top of his dome. Okay, the first thing we're going to take a look at is this face sculpt, which this face sculpt is fantastic. This is a true villain right here. He has the arched, bushy eyebrows. He has that big handlebar mustache, totally bald head, evil monocle, which you can see they've even classified the monocle a little bit, that it looks like there's a little bit of tech going on with that monocle. Like perhaps it gives him readings on something, can zoom in like a microscope on something. I don't know. It's whatever you want it to be. I don't believe the vintage figure had this type. I think it was just a standard monocle. And taking a look at Mindbender in general, first of all, can we just acknowledge how weird this dude is? This is one figure that I did not have as part of the vintage line, mainly because I didn't get it. And I'm still not sure I get it. This buff mad scientist, no shirt, metal suspenders, quasi BDSM gear. I don't know, man. Like, I really wanted a figure of Dr. Venom before we had a figure of Mindbender. And when Mindbender came out, I just didn't. Because now even in the classified, we have these armored up bracers on him that you see right here, which, don't get me wrong, this is a beautiful sculpt. This is great with the silver and the purple and the deep purple of the pants and these huge jack boots right here with the silver buckle on them. As a figure, he looks great, but he really looks like something that should be more in line with Marvel Legends than G.I. Joe. And if there's any figure that can justify a Marvel Legends G.I. Joe crossover, it's this guy right here. Look at these suspenders. Look at this. This is just nuts. The purple armbands. The cape is this heavy material. It's this faux leather going on. I really thought there was going to be a wire in the cape. I hope there's a wire in Serpentor's cape, but there's nothing in this one. And it has a cut form to it. You can see where it's cut out right there. So it kind of does conform to the look and appearance of the vintage cape, as far as I can remember. Like I said, I didn't have the figure. And he has a little bit of a popped collar, but the collar is kind of a mess, and it's all crinkled in there from being compacted into the box. And what's more is, take a look at this. I don't know if it's showing up on the camera, but there's actually some transfer, some paint transfer or dye transfer from the cape onto his shoulder from being smashed into the box right there. And we have it on both sides. Now, I'll probably be able to take care of that. Just get some cleaner and some cotton balls or some cotton swabs and just gently go over that. I don't doubt that I'll be able to get rid of it, but still, for a deluxe figure, for as much as we paid and for being an exclusive, that's kind of annoying. And then, of course, he has his armored codpiece. He does have this utility belt going on underneath, and he has his holster right here for his sidearm, which, because of the way that the holster is connected to his belt, may interfere. Holy cow, the thigh swivel is not moving. May interfere with the thigh swivel a little bit. You can see how the holster kind of wants to move, but then it's held in place. So that's a little bit of a hindrance. We would have to jam it all the way up here if we wanted to move. We would have to jam it all the way up here if we would want to move the legs. And that is sticking a lot. Because like I said, if we put it down here and we move, it kind of gets twisted up. Oh, that's annoying. That's really stiff. Color-wise, I dig the purple. Texture-wise, you got a little bit of meshing going on in these pants. Instead of being smooth, just smooth pants, it looks like they may have taken a note from McFarlane, where he kind of textures everything just to make it a little bit more interesting, just to make it something a little bit more eye-catching. Then he has this racing stripe going down the side right here. Let's take a look at the articulation. Let's start from the top and work our way down. That the head will do a full 360 turn. There's not a whole lot of tilt, which is disappointing because Mindbender should be able to have that inquisitive, oh, there we go, inquisitive head tilt. My man can really look up, and he can bury the chin. That he has the ball joint at the base of the neck, but he also has just a hinge joint with a ball joint at the top. And that is a real good snap, and that really lets his head move around. Now, the arms will do a full 360 spin. He has a butterfly joint underneath the cape right there. The arms will come up. Once again, they're kind of stiff on him. The arms will come up a little bit past 90. He has the bicep swivel. He has double jointed arms that, because of the bracers and his guns, he can't really close them up very well. Wrist swivel. This one pivots in and out, but this one, his trigger hand, pivots up and down. So that's kind of cool. I like that he has the two options. You can see that he has the torso cut right there. That lets him go forward, really lets him crank back. You can see that there is a point like the abs continue up, so you don't get just a blank piece of plastic. He has an 8-pack now. Okay? He has a torso twist, but because of the suspenders, he can't really twist a lot. And he does have some side-to-side. That is a ball joint down there, but the suspenders are really limiting his articulation. And they are not... Are they glued? I didn't even pay attention. Are they glued in there? No, it doesn't look like it. It looks like we'd be able to slip those off if we wanted to. Man, there's some more transfer right there from the cape. All right. All right, let's fix this up. You have to be careful when you're playing with his arms, because sometimes when you lift the arms up, it will push the material into the arm socket right there, and I'm worried that it's either going to stretch or rip. So let's get the arm up out of the way. Let's take a look at the legs. That the legs can come all the way out to the sides. He has those drop-down legs that Classified has. They can come up. They can go back. You saw how far out to the side they can go. He has thigh swivel. This side is much looser than the other side, but it still sticks a bit. He has double-jointed knees that can really fold in on themselves. Boot cut. And I like how they hide it at the top of the boot, and the knee pad from the boot turns with it. Ankles rock back. Ankles rock forward. Forward-facing pin for some rocker. Now, taking a look at his accessories, Mindbender does come with a lot of accessories, but possibly not as many as you think he does. Because while it looked like a lot that was in the box, once you take them out of the box and you sort of put them all together, he doesn't have as much as it looks when it's all packaged in. Don't get me wrong, he has a lot, but you'll see what I mean. They all kind of go together. But here we have his pistol that I don't think this is reminiscent of anything real. A real world pistol. I'm not entirely sure. It looks like they were going for the sci-fi, maybe blaster pistol look. I don't think that's something from the real world. I may be wrong. If I am, please let me know. But it can fit into his trigger hand very well, very easily. It just goes in and twists, and he can get his trigger finger in there. And you can see that there is a hole. You can see that there's a hole bored out through the middle that it can accept blast effects. So Mindbender can lay down some fire. And like a lot of classifieds, he can store his gear on him. He does have this hip holster that we saw before, and the pistol fits in there very nice and tight. You can see it's not going to fall out, and you can feel the holster sort of squeezing down around it whenever you push it in there. So it's a nice tight fit. And I forgot to draw attention to this too. I love these silver buckles. I love this detail that they do on the figure with the black leather and the silver buckling. I really like that. Next up we have this guy. And I don't know what this guy is. It doesn't seem to connect to any of the other accessories that he comes with. It is not bored out for a blast effect, although you could probably put an over the nozzle blast effect on there if we had one laying around. Is this supposed to be like how this has a canister right there? Is this supposed to be like, a Star Trek hypo spray, like you use it to inject things into people? He doesn't have a holster to hold it, but he can just hold it in his hand like so. And it does look like one of the tools of his trade. I don't know. I'm guessing it's just some sort of injector type thingy. But, it's your figure. It can be whatever you want it to be. Next up, we have this canister and hose attachment right here, that with this hose, one end goes into the canister. This was in pieces. You can see it just plugs in right there. It has another peg right here, which you'll see what that is for in a moment. And then we have another receiving end right here on the other end of the hose that we can either plug in this guy. You can see it's some sort of, I don't know, spray gun, fire extinguisher type thing, weapon, I don't know, to spray down some chemicals. You can see that it's bored out for a blast effect, or we can take that off and we can put on this one, which I actually like better. Still not entirely sure what it's supposed to be doing, but once again, it is bored out for a blast effect. So if you have some streaming, some water effects, some chemical effects, something, you can plug it in there and just have it hosing things down. Now, this peg goes right here. He has this peg hole right here on his belt, and it took me a while to find that because I was kind of expecting it to attach to his back or to the small of his back somewhere, but he has this peg hole. Can you see that? Right there on his belt. That this just pops right in there. The cape doesn't really come down over it very well, but then you can put the hose attachment up in his hand, and you can see he has another trigger finger. Come on, get in there. Get in there. The hose is fighting me a little bit. And there he goes. He's dual wielding his tech. The only problem is you have this one left laying around and no place to put it. So Mindbender, unlike a lot of the classified figures, can't exactly carry all of his weapons on him. I mean, there's not even a place for a sheath for this. But I feel like he should have had like a backpack or something to attach all of these hoses and things to. Whether maybe not a hold, like a peg hole backpack, but maybe something you could slip over his shoulders just to like snap this into, snap that into, and then sheath that or holster that as well. I don't know. It just seems not in line with the classified line that he can't just have all of these things on him. In addition to that, we have this hand in a jar, which is fantastic. This is totally Mad Scientist. This is totally Monster Mash. Now, when it came in the packaging, the hand was actually out and the canister was in by itself. So you can remove the hand and take a look at it. And it's basically just a decrepit zombie hand. You even have a bit of bone down here. You have some wires in there like he's trying to animate it. Like when he plugs it into here, he's running current through it to see if he can reanimate the hand and get dead tissue to move and jump and dance. And that's really cool. That's really cool. This, like I said, is completely Mad Scientist monster making stuff right there. And I love it. And then finally, we have a brain in a jar. But it's so much more than a brain in the jar. This came in so many different pieces that, as you can guess, the brain does come out of the jar. And the jar was in the case just like this. The brain jar was in the case just like this. But then these little pieces here, these all come off. And these were just taped into the packaging for whatever reason. And I'm not entirely sure what their purpose is. You can see they have little lights on them, but they just fit into it right there. And I have a really bad feeling that the carpet monster is going to claim these things and I'm going to lose them and not see them again. But you can see that there is a hole in there, and we have a bit of a peg on the brain stem that it fits in there. And then you can put the jar back on top of it, and there you have a specimen brain, Abby Norma. And then you can also, and this is what I think is even cooler, you can take this brain out. Let's set the jar aside for a moment. Let's actually just take a look at this brain. There is some really good detail on something so small on this little brain. All of the crevices in there. You have a bit of a wash in there to bring out the detail. This is really cool. And then you have the stem with the little bit of tech on the stem right there for whatever reason, for whatever Mindbender would be doing. But then you also have this skull, and this skull is great. I love the wrap around it, like the wrap is holding the skull together. I wish, for as much detail as there is on the brain and some of the other things with this set, I wish there was a little bit more paint app on the skull to give it a little bit of a weathered look, to make those teeth stand out, maybe blacken some of the missing teeth. And we have this huge crack in the top of the noggin. Now the noggin, the head can come apart. You can drop the brain into the skull and then put the skull back together, and now you have a broken brain, or you have a broken skull with the brain inside. Like, this is how he found it. That's cool. That's real cool. I really like that. And now for size comparison, here he is next to Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified fellow Cobras, Destro and the Baroness. There's a really decent scale going on here. I was worried because I thought size creep was starting to come into the line already, but it looks like Mindbender and Destro are about the same height, and Baroness is just a hair shorter than the guys. I always appreciated that Baroness is a little taller than most female figures tend to be, because usually, like, especially with Marvel Legends, which we might take a look at pretty soon here, the top of the head usually comes up to about here on the guys. And because I said if there was any figure that could cross over between G.I. Joe Classified and Marvel Legends, it would be Mindbender. Here he is next to some Marvel Legends. I got Black Widow movie series Black Widow, which you can see is much shorter than what Baroness was. And because I couldn't find any of my other Marvel Legends, because I don't have a lot, we have the Hand Ninja. And here he is beside Jada Toys' Universal Monsters, Frankenstein's Monster, and the Bride, because, I mean, come on. Here he is next to NECA Toys, Ming the Merciless, and here he is beside Jazzware's Spartan Collection, Master Chief, and Noble Six. I still say the Spartans scale great with the classified line to use them as, like, Super Troopers. And finally, here he is with the Valaverse Action Force Sergeant Slaughter. My classified Slaughter hasn't shown up yet. And me from the Valaverse Action Force Steel Brigade. So, what do I think of Mindbender? We'll do a full, proper recap on both of them in part 2 of this series, but just as a little spoiler alert, I'm not really thrilled with this figure. Part of it may be because I didn't have the vintage figure. I didn't have any affinity for the vintage figure, and I wasn't really, even as a kid, hyped on the vintage figure. I got Mindbender because of his importance to the lore of Cobra, because of his importance to what happens with Serpentor, and even in the comics, his importance in the Cobra Civil War that took place. But as this figure is, I don't think there was any reason he needed to be an exclusive. I don't think there was any reason he needed to be a quote-unquote deluxe figure. And I feel like a lot of the accessories were thrown in just to justify the ramped up price, but I still don't think it justifies a $50 price tag. The packaging is cool. I definitely love the packaging, and I'm going to be keeping the box. That's really cool. The cape is kind of a mess. And one other thing before we close out for today, I don't for a second believe that Hasbro is going to say, oh, you missed this SDCC exclusive, too bad. Oh, you missed this PulseCon exclusive. That was a very limited run, even after they re-released it. Too bad. No, Mindbender is too important. Serpentor is too important. I don't think they're going to leave collectors out in the wind like that. I don't think they're going to re-release these quote-unquote deluxe versions of them, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in 2023 we get vintage card-backed versions of Serpentor and Mindbender in a package like this, where it's just the figure and some accessories. Unfortunately, that means you won't get all of the kibble that the deluxe version of Mindbender came with, and you more than likely won't get the air chariot. But if the choice comes down to no Mindbender, no Serpentor versus a card-backed vintage style Mindbender and Serpentor without the air chariot, which one are you going to choose? Because even on the secondary market, there's going to be a very limited amount of the Serpentors, I'm guessing. And that is what we have for you today. Part 1 of our 2-part series of our Rise Serpentor Rise. We took a look at Mindbender. Let me know what you think. Do you think he was worth the deluxe price? Do you think he was worth the deluxe packaging? I kind of really think he's a little bit of a mess with that cape. Join us in a few days for Part 2 when we actually take a look at Serpentor. So until then, my friends, play well, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.
A ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
He never gives up, he'll stay till the fight's won. G.I. Joe will dare. G.I. Joe!